I felt okay, so this guy is definitely going to be someone who is going to make headlines in future.
Until what level he didn't use any engines?
Until he reached to 2000 to 2200, somewhere in between, I said it's okay. So
Imagine you have 60 seconds now, and you need to give some piece of advice to chess lovers who wants to improve their game. What it would be?
his father used to drive almost like 1.5 hours from where he was to the place where I was, and we are talking about a 6-year-old kid right now. He would travel like 1.5 hours with his father, and he would sit down like straight 2 hours with me in the class. Straight 2 hours. I was also invited for that party, and that is the first time I'm seeing Anand in person. So it's like a huge moment, okay, in the party, and okay, he comes and he congratulates me, and I'm like already like I don't understand what is going on here. I'm talking to Anand now. The kind of feeling was amazing.
And when he became the youngest Grandmaster, there was sudden tweet by Nepomniachtchi. How did this tweet affected him, and what do you think about this? Everybody, welcome to the first episode of Chess Growth Hacking, where we are going to host people who have already hacked the code of the fast growth in chess. Today my guest is the 18th Grandmaster of India, Arun Prasad Subramanium. Among his many achievements as a professional chess player, he was Asian Junior Champion in 2004 and World Team Championship bronze medalist in 2010. And as a professional coach, his student, Abhimanyu Mishra, at first became the youngest international master in the world at age 10, and then very recently, at age 12, Abhimanyu Mishra became the youngest grandmaster in the world. How on earth they did it? This is what I'm going to ask him today, the code they have hacked. Arun, thank you so much for joining me here today.
Oh, thank you, and okay, I'm honored to be here as the first guest in your show.
Yeah, true. Aaron, man, your student Abhi became the youngest grandmaster in the world. How do you feel?
Oh, well, definitely it's a great feeling because it's not like a few months work or anything. It's like we have been focused and we have been working hard for this specific moment for years together. To be precise, it's like 5 to 6 years of work. So this is like dream come true.
So you met him when he was 6, right?
Yeah, very true. He was 6 years old when I started working with him, and yeah, very small, very little.
So tell me, please, how did you met him? I found that at first it was Magesh's wife who was working with Abhi, then Magesh, Grandmaster Magesh, and then you joined also. Tell us, please, how did you met Abhi first time?
All
And
right. Okay. So here, Grandmaster Magesh, he runs an academy here in US, in New Jersey. It's the name of the academy is Chess Kings and Queens. And okay, Abhi was one of the students in the academy. And to begin with, Magesh's wife Anuprita Patil, she began working with Abhi. So she initially helped them get into that that amateur to the intermediate level, and then he moved on pretty fast, and he was like growing into. So they have a very clear set of classes, like the beginner class, the pawn one, pawn two, pawn three, for each and every rating level. And as he quickly progressed and moved into the bishop level, where Magesh was the trainer for the group class, and well, he felt this kid is definitely someone who needs like more attention. Like, well, whatever he was teaching in the group class alone was not enough to push him in the next level because he was like learning everything very fast. And that is the time that he introduced Abhi to me. And yeah, as I said earlier, he was 6 years old when it all begins. And yeah, so I started working with him in the private classes, and so that is the start. That is where we begin. So this is like yeah, so many years back, and yeah, I still remember briefly a few moments. Like. His father used to drive almost like 1.5 hours from where he was to the place where I was, and we're talking about a 6-year-old kid right now. He would travel like 1.5 hours with his father, and he would sit down like straight 2 hours with me in the class, straight 2 hours, and no distraction, no tiredness, no whining, meaning nothing. Like he was like completely focused on the game. Like you will see that enthusiasm. Like he would be like how we start the class. He will maintain the same amount of energy by the end of the class as well. So this happened for a few days. Like we worked for 4 or 5 classes. Then every class was like getting more and more interesting for me because, well, when we begin, okay, he's 1400 rated. He's 6 years old. So you start with something relatively easy. Okay, you know what? Okay, this cannot be like too challenging. I mean, it should not be too easy or too challenging for him. So you give him something relatively easier, and okay, let him have fun also. So after a while, you feel like, okay, this guy is not getting challenged. So we need to really like, rise up the level. So I kept rising each and every class, and you see like whatever I'm teaching him, he's understanding it easily and he's answering well when I'm testing him. And this happened for a few classes. I still remember this can be like probably like class 6 or 7. And one of the days I went into the class, and okay, I thought like, so today it has to be really challenging. So I really wanted to see what this guy cannot understand. So I decided to work on Karpo's prophylactic play. Like basically, that is considered like even for grandmasters, it's not easy to understand.
Sure, sure.
Yeah, and well, I get into the class and I'm teaching him, and when I'm asking questions, he's explaining things. Then like, okay, so what is this? This guy cannot understand. So I would say that is where like I felt okay. So this guy is definitely going to be someone who is going to make headlines in future. So that is the feeling that I got in my initial days of starting to work with him. This
So from
is
the
how.
first day, you knew that he will be GM soon.
Yeah, definitely. Well, GM was sure, and okay, how fast and what after that was was pretty much the question.
Got it. So Aaron, were you working with Grandmaster Magesh together, or during the first years Magesh was working with you and then you started? How you were cooperating?
Um, well, okay. So regarding our cooperation, so Magesh is one of my closest friend. To be precise, I can even say, he's like my brother from another mother. That's he's like that. He's extremely close. So we are almost like family. So yeah, we know each other for quite a long time, and after I came here to US, and yeah, when our collaboration starts, yeah, pretty much he's more like a mentor for me as well. Like, okay, not only for the students, and he generally helps me with a lot of stuff. So this is how my relationship with Magesh in general is, and in general regarding how to teach the classes or how we can improve, how we can provide better services for the students. Well, we generally talk a lot about these things. Even before I'm having this interview right now, like prior to this, even I had a 1 hour call with them. Like, we were discussing what other things we can add up for the kids, and how better we can, like improve on the lessons part and things like that. So this is something that we constantly keep working, keep asking questions. And so yeah, this has been going on for quite a long time for us. So when I have a good class, when I teach my students something, so I'll generally share it with them. And if he teaches something good, and he will share it with me, and we will generally get involved with everything, starting from the students, lessons, everything. We generally have a word with each other. So we share information regarding that, and we constantly try to improve on how we can do this better. So this is how things work out between me and Magesh.
Got it. And how you were working with Abhi? Like how you were dividing the work? Who were working with the openings? Who were working with the end games or middle games? Like there should be clear separation, yeah, from the for the works. How you did it and who was working on what?
Well, to begin with, when I started working with them, so I started taking care of all the aspects. So Abhi used to come for the group class with Magesh, and I would take care of the private classes. And obviously, in group classes, you cannot go and teach any opening that you want. Like, it will not be useful for any most of
Mm-hmm.
the people. Like, yeah. So I have to take care of specific things as well. and Magesh would take care of the middle game and calculation part or the end games in the group classes. But somehow the group classes didn't continue for a long time because he was like rising rapidly. So and then then we decided we have to increase the classes that they are working with me. So I started, instead of meeting him once, I started meeting him 2 or 3 times a week. So our classes also increased. So yeah, at that point, I had to take care of pretty much all the areas of the game for him. And so one thing we decided with Abhi. So what I thought was he has to be classically trained. Like what I felt was, well, with the new generation, the computerized stuff, I didn't want him to become someone who will become like completely dependent on the computers. Well, to be precise, I didn't. I asked his father not even to have any computer engines in his computer. He didn't even have anything. Like he had only chess base and he would have with databases or any other files that I give him, but he wouldn't have any computers at all. Like that's
Sorry,
how we began.
until what level he didn't use any engines?
Until he reached to 2000 to 2200, somewhere in between, I said it's okay. So until then, the idea was, I would ask his father to check if at all there is anything. I mean, I didn't want his creativity to be like taken down because of the computers. If whatever it is, let the natural flow of the game come. That is what I felt. Okay, this is my opinion. I can be wrong as well. Many people can object to this, but okay, this is what we did. And okay, since it's worked out, maybe we can say it might work for others also. So yeah, once I started working with him in these areas, mainly I wanted to focus on the middle game and the end game aspects to begin with. We had some basic opening work. He had like a limited repertoire. He would play the same Tamino as black, and he would play the same Queen's Camp declined as black. He had a limited repertoire with white also. Whatever he knew it good, but he didn't have any extensive knowledge of openings. So at that point, we were mainly focusing on the middle games and end games, and like at the time he was rising very fast. Pretty much he was like gaining like 200 points a year, like rapid. Okay, so I mean, maybe we can argue that at 1400 to 1600, 1600 to 1800, maybe until 2000 also, it's maybe you can say it's relatively easy. That's no big deal. But actually, it's not a big. It's definitely a big deal. But okay, someone can argue that. But he was doing the same pretty much after that also. So what happened was, okay, if I have a vision for him, it had to also like constantly keep improving and changing. So if I thought like, okay, you know what, let me start the opening a little while later, well, he would be there very soon before I even anticipate. So that is how it was. And like once he reached around like the 1900 to 2000, then I felt okay. So it's time for him to introduce proper openings and stuff. So then I started concentrating more on the openings and middle games. And then Magesh was also like, he was good enough to come in and show his expertise in the end games. Magesh generally likes end games and end game stuff. He's generally like he has collected like his own material over the course of time, and he enjoys working on the end games as well. He generally likes that part of the game more than other aspects. And yeah, he started working with Abhi in that area, and so that I can also concentrate more on the opening part and the middle game part. So we divided our work like this, and we started focusing. So this was around like 2018 at that time. Magesh also steps in, and yeah, we both started working with him extensively. And around that time, Kasparov's Chess Foundation also like selected Abhi as one of their students, and Kasparov would have a session with Abhi once in 6 months, something like that, and he would also send another Russian grandmaster. His name is Alexander Chernin, and he would come on a quarterly basis to assess Abhi, and he would also like give his views and thoughts on what I should be working on with Abhi. So this kept happening until like 2018 and 19. So those 2 years we had some support from Kasparov Chess Foundation as well. And in the meantime, okay, he was already like gaining his rating very fast, and from 2200 he made it to 2400. He became world's youngest international master as well at that time. But one thing was, okay, this happens for all chess players. I'm sure you would also agree with me. Like we all are hesitant to change. Okay, when we have a limited opening repertoire and we want to learn a new opening and we have to play that, we almost feel like it's an entirely different game. Instead of playing chess, people are asking me to play tennis. So that's the kind of feeling I think every chess player has when he has to try out a new opening. And Abhi had a similar issue also. Like he would he really wanted to change, but somehow he will always hesitate. He will say, okay, no, I don't know that line so much. I don't want to try in an important game. Well, unfortunately for him, every game was important. He didn't have a luxury of playing a tournament. You know what? I just go and try new stuff in this tournament, whether it works or not. I don't care. It was not like that for him. So it was almost like, okay, he was always very close to achieving something, gaining something, winning tournaments, things like that. So he didn't have the luxury of trying out some new stuff whenever needed. So I also like not really like pushing him to the limits. Well, generally I am someone who, okay, if the player feels comfortable, I'll let him do that. Like I'll not really go and say, okay, you know what, you cannot play this and this is what you have to play. I mean, I was not, okay, I don't know if I have to improve on that part as a trainer, but I was not really pushing him to the limits like that. So yeah, at that point, like the opening part was a little bit of an issue for him, but like the moment he became an IM, he started like expanding his opening repertoire like extensively. So there, like whatever work I was putting in, whatever I was asking him to play, then everything started making sense. In the meantime, like endgame also, like Magesh worked very well, and I think a couple of months back I saw Carsten Muller himself appreciated Abhi's endgame skills. Well, from such a great person, he himself appreciating Abhi. Okay, we can understand the kind of work that Magesh has done in the end game. So everything has to be appreciated.
Got it, got it. So, what I noticed in the chess world, it's kind of this little bit egoistic approach from many chess coaches. When they have a talented kid, they want to train only themselves because they understand when this kid will become an international master, grandmaster, they want all that, wow, bravo to them. So it's like you should really separate your ego from your bigger vision so you can invite another strong coach because you believe that together you are going to make it happen. So when I'm speaking about this topic with the chess world, that it's absolutely fine to have two coaches, but these two coaches should be like brothers and they should really have a training plan. Then it's fine because what is happening? Sometimes people try, but then one coach is saying you play Karokan, another coach is saying French, and this kid is between the two coaches. So I'm very happy that you are sharing that thing, and you actually proved. You guys, you and Magesh, you proved how wonderful it can work together. So here I see that Abhi was very talented, and also he had two very strong coaches who didn't were experimenting, but they have training plan and they approach that into them. What are other factors that kids should have to for this very fast growth? So talent is one, coaches, strong coaches second. What else?
Okay, so yeah, since you said talent and the player is has to be like talented and stuff, and coaches is one thing, and the next thing I would say like the sacrifice from the parents. I firsthand saw like how much his father was dedicated towards his son's achievements and stuff. How much he has sacrificed, like that's unbelievable. Like just for an example, like I would end up working like 2 3 days on a specific file for him, and explain things to him in the class. And okay, this is how you need to understand. These are the things I'm expecting from you. And okay, he's still very young, like 7 8 years old kid, and you know. I'll give him like I'll have to dump him a huge file on him that he has to finish, and you know what? Like 2 3 days until my next class. I'll meet him in the next class. He would come and say like, yeah, he's done with everything. I'm like, really? Like, how did this happen? Like, what did you do? Like, how is this done so quickly? He would say like, after my school is over, after my father comes from his office, they would have their dinner and they'll begin their day at that point after their dinner is over, when their families going to their bed, he and his father would sit down. They would work until like 12:30, 1 o'clock in the night, and they would pretty much finish whatever I'm giving, whatever I'm asking them to do. They will deliver that in the very next class. So when I'm giving him the file, I will tell him, you know what, you may have to take it slow. It's okay. I understand it's huge material. You'll have to work on it for a couple of weeks. I completely understand. Take your own time, understand it. But they'll sit down like in spite of his office time, in spite of Abhi's school time, like he'll still end up finishing whatever I'm giving him. You know, Talent is one thing. The kid has to be like dedicated and should be ready to work hard like this. I'm sure Kasparov once said, right, like in chess, working hard is a talent. uh, well, in terms of pure chess talent, I can say Abhi is not the most talented kid I have seen in my coaching experience. But regarding the hard work, like he's abundantly talented in that aspect.
I
So
have
I
seen
would say,
that he works 12 hours. Yeah, in some interview said it's true, 12 hours.
well, I would say like not all these 5 6 years, but in general, it would be averaging for like 6 to 7 hours on an average
For
every
a kid,
day.
it's a lot. Yeah.
It's a lot. And especially when there are like video games out there that you can go and play, you can go and play with your friends out there for a sleepover, things like that. Yeah, but in the last 2.5 months, whatever he said is absolutely true. He is working for 10, 12 hours every day on a daily basis. Starting from, okay, once this Grandmaster achievement has to be done, well, he understood what it exactly takes to reach that. So he was basically delivering that, whatever was needed. That's how it is. So it's not only about the students' talent, it's not about the coaches alone. Parent sacrifice needs to be there. And okay, finally, most importantly, the kid has to be like super hardworking
So
eventually.
four things. Yeah, kind of talent, hardworking, coaches, and parent role.
Parents' role is absolutely important. And okay, and on top of all this, we never know. For some people, things work out relatively easily. For some people, we have to, you have to like work more harder to achieve something. And I would say like Abhi was not someone who was not exactly privileged or anything. He had to really like push things to the limits to get whatever he wanted in his career too.
Got it. Uh, Aaron, one interesting thing I noticed, seeing parent reactions and seeing fathers trying to contribute in their son's success is the following. Uh, well, if the parent don't care, we understand. It probably will not work. But sometimes parent they want to help, but they over try it, and sometimes they put huge pressure on a kid, saying you will need to win. So if you didn't win, you don't eat today, or some other crazy things. And on my eyes, very very talented grandmasters, they at some point they started to not love chess. So, what was the connection between you, Abhi, and Abhi's father in the mental, like how you were motivating him, but at the same time not getting to the point when it will be burnout?
It's an important question, I guess, because well, as I said earlier, I first saw Abhi as a super enthusiastic kid who will come for the class with tremendous interest to learn something. That excitement was always there. But at times I could sense that he was feeling the pressure. Certainly, like he has to make that final norms. He needs to get this done. Well, yeah, that was all there. But you know what? From my perspective or from his father's perspective, what we generally insisted on was, well, we were not really worrying about the result. Well, result, so many things have to work out for us. But we were mostly focusing or insisting on the training aspect is one. And during the game, there are a few important things he has to deliver. He has to manage his time well. He needs to focus on the correct things, play the correct type of chess. Well, even if you win a game by doing wrong things, he won't get that appreciation. Even if he loses, if he's doing the right things and if he loses the game, we would still appreciate for his efforts. So this is the kind of thing that we were focusing on. Well, if he is not working, if he's like if he feels tired, if he is not getting the work done, then there will be an issue. But when he loses the game, well, in general, that was never a problem. As long as he is doing the correct things, he would still have no issues at all. Well, for example, in the GM norm hunt, there was instances where he would constantly get into time trouble. Like every single game, this was one of the things that I would tell him. Today, okay, win or not, it doesn't matter. You should not get into time trouble. So this is something that I would constantly keep telling him. So I think in general, parents and coaches. Well, again, it's just my suggestion, and I can be wrong, but focus on doing the correct things rather than the result. Like let's focus on working on the correct aspect. If we are not working properly, focus on that. Like you can a coach or a parent can get mad if the student is not putting in the time. If he's not putting in the effort, yeah, then okay, you need to have a talk with the kid. Their getting angry is justified, understandable, but not about the result. Obviously many things have to work out, and that's completely not under our control alone. Sometimes you need to get some help from your opponent also.
Got it. So it seems uh, it's about not about results, but about performing the best as possible before and during the game. Correct? Got it.
Exactly.
Got it. Aaron, one interesting thing. You mentioned that you didn't allow him to use Chess Engine until he got 2200. I'm absolutely agree with you. The same approach I have with the students. And this is one of my pain points when our ChessMood students, they watch our courses, someone 1800, but they give some deep questions using Stockfish 13 and sometimes cloud engines. And when I say that, guys, it's not your time where you need to check out cloud engines, not just engines, cloud engines. It's something that can destroy your chess. Often people don't understand, and I'm very happy you have also the same thing and you shared it, that it is how it works with Abhi. Here I have another question. Were you allowing him to play Blitz games? And if yes, how much he was playing?
Well, yeah, to begin with, yeah, I was also under the impression that, Blitz or the bullet games will kill your chess creativity, your regular chess performance may take a hit if you're doing too much of this. Well, initially, I wouldn't ask my students to play Blitz games.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, as a coach, also, you tend to learn things and you improve over the years. Though, I mean, that's what we call experience, right? Over the years, what I have come to understand is, well, definitely, I will not ask them, I will not encourage them to play bullet games.
Uh-huh.
You can have fun. I'm not saying no to that. Yes, you can have some fun, like 15, 20 minutes of bullet games here and there. I can understand. Um, but in general, what Abhi was doing was we insisted on at least rapid games. He would end up playing like 10, 15 minutes games, at times 5 minutes also, mainly to get practice with the positions and systems and get the feel for the position. Most importantly, things like that. But whenever he plays games, the priority was to understand what kind of uh, mistakes that he did and whether he wins or not, where exactly things change and how what he exactly takes from the game. We were mostly focusing on those kind of things. So he's playing blitz games. That doesn't mean he would play like for 1 hour and he'll go to sleep. Things like it don't work like that. He would play games. He'll make sure he'll get something out of the game. Every game is a learning opportunity. You gain something out of the game and you move on. You play blitz, you play bullet. It doesn't matter, but you need to get something out of it. So this is
Okay.
what we were basically like implementing when Abhi was training, and Abhi used to play plenty of 10-15 minute game for a long time. Yeah.
Uh, Around the same approach, I highly recommend to our students when they learn some new openings. Uh, you need to understand it, not just remember move by move. And one of the best ways, of course, is practicing it. So my favorite time control is 5+3 between the blitz game and rapid. So you can play many games because the most important part will be your 15 until 20 moves, so you understand the positions. Yeah, but often people have this problem. They want to play 10+5, for example, but they go online and they don't find opponents. So, did Api have a training sparring partner?
Um,
And
not
sorry, and the second question, after he was playing, were you analyzing these games?
He wouldn't analyze this with me. Uh, he won't analyze every game with me, but if there were instances where he felt based on theoretical knowledge or anything he feels important, he'll separate those games and he'll come and check with me. So basically, like not every game would be like like you made some conceptual mistake or anything. It can decide based on some tactical inaccuracies or some blatant mistakes or blunders towards the end because of time trouble. Those kind of games were not priority, and any game there were conceptual mistakes or his opponent comes out with a new idea which we haven't analyzed, and I didn't really understand. When Abhi feels something like that, yeah, then he would end up analyzing all those kind of games with me for sure. This was always there. But for practice partner kind of training, Abhi didn't have exactly like that. But at some point when Magesh stepped in for training, Abhi started playing positions, small advantages we wanted to convert at most precision. So this kind of positions we will choose, and Magesh used to play against Abhi in specific time control. And one of the things we initially had was he would always go for the long calculation kind of stuff. The technical conversion was not exactly coming. What we call it as technique was still not at par. Like what it takes to be a grandmaster, he was not showing that. So Magesh stepped in to work on that. He would have like a difficult position, inferior position, and ask Abhi to convert it and show it to him. So this kind of training like proved to be very useful for him. But otherwise, like during online play, well, we didn't really have problems finding that like 10-minute or 15 minutes games where we didn't find partners. Well, he certainly found a lot of people to play with. I don't know, maybe timing or something might differ, I guess. But somehow he had people to play regularly, and he regularly played against grandmasters or strong players, in general, title players.
Uh, I don't know, one question. If you don't want to answer, we'll skip it. Here's my question. I found that earlier years, Abhi's father made Abhi to play lots of in senior tournaments and not much in his age tournaments. And when he became the youngest grandmasters, there was sudden tweet by Jan Nepomniachtchi, and it was a boom in Twitter. People were sharing their opinions. And my question is this: I saw up his interview right away after he made the GM, and I saw like how positive and enthusiastic and fun kid is he. How did this tweet affected him, and what do you think about this whole situation?
Well, yeah, certainly. Well, the timing of the tweet was the main concern, I guess. Well, okay, to begin with, I have to say Nepomniachtchi is a great player. He's a legend already. Whether he becomes a world champion or not, that's a different story. He's a legend and one of the best players in the world. We have nothing but respect for him. And Abhi himself has learned a lot. He personally mentioned this to me also. He has learned a lot from Nepomniachtchi's games, and that is all true. Well, I think the timing of the tweet was bad, and unfortunately, it got escalated beyond control. And yeah, there were war of words from both sides, and it unnecessarily became an issue. Yeah, certainly, my take here is that, well, there is a system. The International Federation, FIDE has to decide, and they have a system for everything in place. And a system has been working for a long time now. And whenever there is a issue, we have complaints. It is the people who are in the system who have to make the final decision. Yes, we all complain a lot. We all have a lot of issues with different rules and system, the way it works. But eventually, like, the system has to take its own course. It takes its own time in general. But eventually, it's the decision from FIDE. They have to make all the decisions. We can all give the suggestions about what is correct and what is not correct. But eventually, they have to decide. And in the meantime, yeah, like it became an issue. But as of now, we don't want any more confrontation or anything. Well, as I said earlier, he's a great player of our time, and we have nothing but respect. And even the tweets that went against him were only against what he tweeted. It was nothing personal. Again, we have nothing but respect for him.
Got it. Api also got a wild card from FIDE, so he's going to participate in the World Cup in Sochi. It didn't affect anyway on Api, right?
Well, he got the invite before he became. He achieved the Grandmaster title. And personally, for me, I was telling him and his father, we have to go there to the tournament as the world's youngest Grandmaster. Because, when FIDE people are giving him this opportunity, well, there should not be a question why such a small kid is getting this opportunity. There are several other people who are deserving, who should also get this opportunity. Well, when they are giving him such an opportunity, we have to prove them correct. Now he's the youngest grandmaster. I'm sure he's one of the most deserving person, and right now when he's going to play in the World Cup, I'm like super excited and most happy to see him in action there. So I'm sure like the whole world is anticipating, a 12-year-old playing in the World Cup. I don't know,
Yeah,
that might be another record too.
true, true, true. Well, Aaron, you said that many other grandmasters also worked with Abhi, including Kasparov. And also, I have found that you have worked at some point with Vishwanathan Anand. How this affected your chess career and your future chess coaching? Tell us about that experience, because Anand, one of the greatest people in the, it will always be in the chess history. Tell us about it.
Yeah, that was an interesting story. I still remember Kramnik. Anand played against Kramnik in the World Championship, and he ended up winning the world title. And that was the first undisputed World Championship title after a long time. Since that Kasparov shot World Championship issue. There were like multiple world champions at the same time, and there were like a lot of confusion. And yeah, Anand unifies the world championship title and becomes undisputed world champion. And there was a felicitation function that was organized by the Indian Chess Federation at the time in Chennai, and I was also invited. At the time, I became the youngest. The latest Grandmaster of India. It was like it was probably a couple of months before I became the Grandmaster, and I was also invited for that party. And that is the first time I'm seeing Anand in person. So it's like a huge moment, okay, in the party, and okay, he comes and he congratulates me, and I'm like already like I don't understand what is going on here. I'm talking to Anand now. The kind of feeling was amazing. And prior to that, one of our common friends, his name is Saravanan. He's one of the close friends of Anand. He constantly meets Anand and works with him and stuff. He was working in my company as well, and he told me, you know what, there might be chances that Anand might invite you for a camp with them. So when Anand asks, what are you doing this January, things like that, just tell him you have nothing to do. Like I'm like doing nothing. I'm just gonna sit simply in my home. I have nothing to do. So this is what he told him. This is what he told me. And yeah, when I'm meeting Anand, and after the dinner was over, Anand said, so what are you doing this Jan? And I said, no, I'm doing nothing. In fact, I was already like, I agreed to play in a tournament. And I said, no, I'm doing nothing. And I'm totally free. I'm at home. Then he said, okay, give me a number, and I'll call you back at some point. I said, yeah, sure. Yeah. I gave him the number, and after a few days, I got a call, and he said, what are you doing this time? Are you available to come and work with me? And I'm like, okay, this is like unbelievable moment. The world champion has invited me to come and work with him. So yeah, this is how the story goes, and I'm like super excited. And yeah, that is the first time I got to work with Anand. And in a couple of other occasions also, we worked together. And well, that is the first time I get to see in person where a world-class player, who legendary player like Anand, how he works and the kind of the hard work that he's putting. So at the time, like okay, I was a grandmaster, all true, and I was working hard as well. But usually my work is like, okay, like on a daily basis, I end up working like 6-7 hours. Okay, which I would say it's pretty reasonable. And I go to meet Anand, and our camp usually starts around 10:30, 11 in the morning, and it would usually end around like 8:30, 9 in the night. So it's like close to 10, 11 hours of work. Some days it also extended to 12 hours of work as well. And I'm there, I'm like thinking, Anand just became the world champion, and he ends up working like 10, 12 hours every day. And I'm an average grandmaster. What am I doing here? So this is the kind of feeling I got. And the approach that he took, the kind of ideas that we discussed in the camp, well, it all came in very handy when I was working with Abhi, especially when we had to choose the openings and the kind of work that he was doing. Well, I wanted Abhi to get exposed to these kind of things that from very young age. So, I don't know whether he's going to become a world champion or not, but certainly he's going to be one of the top players in the world in some time in near future. When that day comes in, well, he should not feel like surprised to work like how Anand was doing. So these are the stories that I used to tell Abhi as well. If world champion is working like this, think about you, like how many hours you should be working. So these were all like very interesting and useful for Abhi's training part as well. And yeah, like whatever ideas that we discussed and the kind of professional work that Anand was doing, and yeah, all those I definitely tried to bring this to Abhi as well. So these were like very important parts for me in my life. Well, that's like I would say one of the best moments that in my life, that's for sure. Meeting Anand, or getting to be in the same room working on chess with him for hours together, I can easily say that some of the best moments in my life.
Got it. Aaron, during your coaching with Abhi and with your other students, well, we all coaches, we have databases, yeah, about positional chess, about calculation. We take them all together in one place, and whenever student has problem in calculation, we have kind of medicine for them. So,
Yeah.
what are the sources, resources you used a lot where you extract material? What are the books, some courses that you use them, and also you can recommend for chess lovers to use them? What are the best one? What will be the least?
All right. So I can definitely say what Abhi has used over the years. To begin with, obviously, we had like limited resources. Even I was not very exposed to different kind of material. We had the chess base, we used the mega database and basic stuff. And other than that, over the years, whatever books that I have studied, well, to begin with, I generally insist all my students to study the books of Kasparov, starting from my great predecessors. Well, I would say after they reach a level, I literally force them to study all these books. Well, in my opinion, again, I can be wrong, but in my opinion, I would say these are like just treasures. Like, there is abundant of information that Kasparov has written. Well, it's like, okay, Kasparov is considered one of the best players. If not the best player, he's definitely one of the best players of all time. No doubt about that. And he writes about the former world champions, starting from the first world champion. He chooses only limited number of games from their games, and he annotates them. So it's the best player annotating. He's annotating the games of best players, and he chooses the best games that they have played. So you see, like what kind of information that's hiding in those books. Well, these kind of well, in my personal opinion, I would say if you don't study these kind of books and these kind of ideas, it's a crime. You cannot call yourself a professional player. So you definitely have to study these kind of stuff if you want to really become good in chess. So Abhi, yeah, you can.
Sorry for interrupting until we move to the next book here. I have a few questions because this is something very important, I think, because for chess world it's much more fun to just go to some software and solve tactics. It's more fun. I could do, I couldn't do. Let me try one more time, and so on. It's much more fun. Sitting and learning classics, starting from Steinitz and going through Capablanca, Fischer, like all of the best guys. Sometimes it's a little bit comparing can be boring, but I always like I keep repeating, if you really want to grow, it's not just sitting and solving tactics. At some point you need to learn classics. So you agreed, yeah, classics is one of the fundamental things you need to do for improvement.
Very true. See, I definitely did that with Abhi. Started learning the classical games, even like at that tender age. Like I could say, like we started quite early. I definitely made sure he studied his classical games. My great predecessors, books like that, where I mean, because of his age, he remembers most of the games as well. I still remember, like when he was like around 6, 7, I had shown him a game that was played by Max Uwe, and after several years, when I was in a completely different concept, I wanted to show him that game. He said, "You showed me this game in 2016." I'm like, did I? So that's the kind of memory he had. And yeah, so studying classical games and relating your game, your structures with those kind of games, we tried to definitely like bring that in his games quite early. So in my opinion, any player who wishes to become a grandmaster or any level should definitely study the classics. And my great predecessors would be starting point. I would definitely recommend. And so this is some of the books that he started in his like when he was like around like 2000 1800 to 2000 level. I started like showing him these kind of, exposed him to these kind of books. And from there other things like Chessable came in at a very important moment. So they were like very good in supporting his career as well, and they gave some of the courses, and they helped them a big time too. So that was also very useful for Abhi's training. And regarding the training part, regarding calculation or tactics, Abhi used chess tempo extensively. Well, it's not that he didn't use chess.com tactics or chess based tactics and all. He, at some point, like chess.com, he was like doing it every single day. His points were like beyond the limit, and he kept gaining. And chess.com had to reset his ID like multiple times so that he can start over from the first. And eventually, he'll still end up coming out as number one, and they would still repeat the same. This happened a couple of times. But he personally told me chess tempo like proved to be like very useful for him. So I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I felt it was useful too, but yeah, the viewers can decide that.
Chess Tempo I also highly recommend, and with Chess Tempo I also recommend CT Art. What do you think about CT Art?
Well, CT art, I haven't used it extensively, but with the basic work that I have done with it, like I have recommended CT art also to some of my students. I also felt it was, they have done an excellent job also. But overall, like again, like the point is there are so many resources, and well, I'm sure every resource is pretty useful, and it eventually comes down to how we are going to make use of it. And recently, I also came to know about another excellent tool which is called ChessMood. So, well, I haven't explored it much, and yeah, but with the basic idea, the idea that they have implemented, I felt like yeah, they have also done a great job. In future, I would recommend those things also to my students.
We just created a free count for you, so after our call, I'm going to give it to you. So really, we have also we didn't just concentrate on the openings. Well, there are openings, but one of the main courses we started to record, it was classical games. So we recorded 100 classical games, and then we started to record 100 classical attacking games, and then 100 classical end games. And to record them, it takes so much time because you will need to take all the games of the classics, find the best ones, and not just the best ones who had historical importance, but also they are very instructive for students who will watch and something he will learn. Often our coaches are sending me games. It's like cool game, right? And when I ask, okay, cool, what did they learn? And there is no answer. What exactly did they learn? Okay, we skip that. Let's go. Let's move to the next game. So yeah, we try to do there a lot. And one of the problems is, I think in the chess world there is abundance of information. It's too much. And one of the ideas of this series of interviews is going to ask coaches and people who hack the code, what are the sources that they use? Because there are really a lot, and if you start buying 100 books, putting on your shoulder and, okay, I will read this, often you can go to the wrong path. Yeah. Arun, you should have also, I bet you should have also other students who are as well talented and have you and Magesh working with them, so many other grandmasters names we are going to have to season. Do you accept more students now?
Well, actually, as of now, I don't accept many new students, but I certainly accept students whom I feel like really need like help when they are like moving on to the next level. Well, even the students I have currently, I generally try to restrict the students with whoever is serious, whoever really wants to move on to the next level, who have really like a lot of ambitions. Those kind of students are the ones I really like focus on. So as of now, I don't have many openings, but usually like I have like at least one or two spots for students who are like really motivated and those who
Hmm.
really want to make it to the next level, those kind of students, I definitely would find time for them for sure, one way or the other.
Got it. Arun, where can they find you?
Well, well, I have my website, gmarunchess.com. Well, they can find some more information about me there as well. And well, as of now, it's a more of a basic website, and yeah, definitely they can. I mean, I'm trying to improve on that, and I'm also there in social media like Facebook and Twitter, where I'm not extremely, like I don't use them on a regular basis, but I plan to, be there more active in future, and yeah, things like that. But yeah, I don't know, I might be old school because of this, but yeah, I didn't really find find it interesting to spend more time on social media. But I don't know, things change and you have to evolve, you have to learn new things. Maybe this might be one thing like that.
Got it. Arun, it was like really very informative for myself too. So at the end of our talk, I have a one interesting question for you. Uh, Imagine you have 60 seconds now, and you need to give some piece of advice to chess lovers who wants to improve their game. What it would be?
Well, to become good at anything, I believe you should truly have the interest in that. So if you really think you have the passion for the game, if you are someone who can really sit down for 6 to 8 hours in a day, imagine a 6-year-old sitting down with the Grandmaster for straight 2 hours without any distraction. This kind of dedication, this kind of interest is what I'm talking about. If you think you have that kind of passion, that's the first step. I would say this is number one necessity. Without this, I don't think there is going to be any kind of success. As long as you are interested, you have the passion, I'm sure there will be a way to work it out. And number two, yeah, interest is one thing. You should also be ready to work hard. Like, there might be times where, uh, you may lose the motivation because of a tournament game or someone said something about you. Things can like that can also happen. But without losing that motivation, you have to keep working hard. And I believe passion and hard work are the most basic thing. If you guys have that, I'm sure like anyone can become good in chess. So generally, this is what I tell my students. Chess is like language. Anyone can learn any language as long as they are putting the time into it. And I would say like chess is something very similar to that. As long as having the passion and interest, if you're ready to work hard, I'm sure like you will definitely find yourself wherever you want to be in chess. That's the way I see it.
Got it. Well, dear chess lovers, Arun is a person who became a grandmaster first himself at 20, right? At 20?
Yeah, I was
Yeah,
20 when
at 20, and then his student also become a grandmaster at 12. So he didn't just do it on himself, but this thing he put on a student and made it even at 12. So this is some words we every one of us need to keep in our mind when we think about improvement. Aaron, thank you so much for joining me here, and I am wishing you all the best with your future successes and looking forward to seeing more names, more grandmasters names where you will be their coach.
Oh, thank you. Thanks a lot, Dr. And it was a nice talk. I was very happy, and it was pretty interesting for me as well. And I see that you guys are doing a great job with chess mode, and contributing for the chess world. And well, good luck with that. And I'll definitely be recommending some of your work to my students as well. And to all chess viewers, it was all very nice. And I'm sure like you guys also had some inspiration or some interesting ideas and words from me. I'm sure it's going to be useful in some way. And I'll see you all around. And thank you, Otik.
Thank you very much, Aaron. I hope you enjoyed the episode and you will use the tips Aaron shared here on your own chess journey. If you haven't yet, make sure to subscribe and keep the Kogro, the constant growth. See you next time, my friends. Take care.